So just quickly, our topic today, we're going to look at what is mindfulness. Then we're going to talk about some benefits of it. There's a lot. We'll cover like 3 just for time's sake. And then we'll focus on how do we start training in mindfulness? Like how do we actually make this a part of our life, right? And we'll hear all these cool things that it might do. How do we start putting that into practice? Greetings from Poland. Mariola, thank you so much for being here. How cool that you're here all the way from Poland. I'll talk fast, that way you can get to bed. Awesome. Okay, so if you're new, maybe you're like, well, I don't know anything about meditation. No, that's fine. Meditation, primarily, newbie here, looking forward to tonight, Kentucky. All right, welcome. Meditation, maybe if you're new, you're like, okay, I'm here to relax. Meditation's about relaxing. Yeah, it is. That's one piece of it. But there's like kind of 2 facets of meditation. And the first is learning how to relax your mind, right? And then the second is learning how to use that relaxed mind in a productive way to like investigate something, to learn about something, right? Essentially, meditation is a technique to familiarize your mind with something, right? So if you think about something we're really familiar with, maybe driving a car, right? If I was like, oh, can you drive down the street and get XYZ? And you'd be like, okay, fine. And you get in the car. You don't have to like think about, okay, let me remember how to drive. You just start driving, right? Because driving is very familiar to your mind, right? And your body, but we're focusing on our mind. But it wasn't always like that, right? There was a time when it took a lot of thinking to drive down the street, right? There's the brake, there's the gas, so many buttons, right? Hands 10 and 2 or whatever. So there was a time where it wasn't that way. And through repetition, right? Through our mind becoming familiar with driving, now driving becomes very natural to us, right? So meditation is all about training our mind to become familiar with things like kindness and gratitude. We can actually become familiar with anything, but that's like what we're focusing on here, all that good stuff. And we can become so familiar with those things that they come to us naturally, right? Just like driving does now. If you think about anger, that's always the example I like to use. It's so easy to get angry, right? You don't have to try to get angry. Having a great day, walking down the street, somebody says something to you, boom, angry, right? It comes pretty effortlessly. But patience takes effort, right? Because our mind is a little more familiar with getting angry than being patient. But meditation, we can start to train and tilt the scales in the other direction, right? So that's kind of it's a little overview of what the promise of meditation is. Oh, you love my videos. You want to watch more? Thanks for everything. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you to say. Thank you. I'm glad you found them helpful. Thank you. It means a lot to me. So before we can do any of those fancy investigations and familiarize our mind and all that cool stuff, we do have to learn how to relax, right? You don't need me telling you that when your mind is not relaxed, it's not really working that well, right? When your mind's kind of in a panic, right? You're not thinking as clearly, as reasonably. Things just aren't really coming as easily, right? You're like not yourself, right? So our first step in meditation is to learn how to relax our mind, right? And so if you think about the example I like to use to kind of bring a visualization to this is if you think about a still lake. You're on a hike, you come up to a very still lake. There's no wind or anything like that. You can see the reflection in the lake. It's very clear, right? If it starts to rain a little bit, well, now the reflection's not as clear. You might not be able to describe the reflection in the lake, especially if it starts to really rain, right? Our mind is normally like a still lake. It's very clear, very calm, very peaceful, very collected, right? Very reasonable. All of the anxieties and worries and distractions and bombardments of thoughts that are kind of coming at us each and every day constantly, they're like raindrops, right? And the more they are, the harder it is for us to think clearly, right? To use our mind to its full capacity, right? So our first step is to clear away some of these raindrops that are kind of falling on our still lake mind thing. All right? So we're going to try to clear away some of those raindrops, and the way that we're going to do that is through something called single-pointed concentration. or breathing meditation. Maybe you've heard of that, right? All single pointed concentration means is we're focusing on one thing. We're not multitasking, right? Multitasking is not very good for being calm, right? It's good for getting a lot of tasks done, but not so great for being calm, right? So we're going to focus so much on one thing that other things are going to start to fade away a little bit, right? You've experienced something like this, right? I mean, being in the zone, maybe you're working on something at work, totally plugged in, right? What happens? You lose track of time. People are calling your name. You don't hear it. The pain in your knee goes away, right? It's like those things aren't there because you're so plugged into one thing, that project. So we're going to do this intentionally, and we're going to focus on our breath. We're going to use our breathing meditation. And we do that, we use our breath as this focal point for trying to relax with meditation because it's a tool that we always have. We always have our breath with us, right? Otherwise, you got bigger problems. So if we get good at using our breath to relax, well, we can relax wherever and whenever, which is the goal, right? The goal is to be able to incorporate some of these skills into our daily life to make it work for us, right? Okay. So we're going to do a breathing meditation now. Does anyone have any questions on this before we get started? There'll be plenty of time for questions later, if not. We're going to do a breathing meditation now. It's pretty simple from a instructional standpoint, right? You just focus on your breath. And then when you notice that your attention has like drifted into thinking about something else, right? You're like, not right now. Bring it back to focusing on your breath. That's it. That's the practice for breathing meditation, right? And we're going to start to notice that over time, we can stay with our breath a little bit longer, and we're going to start to settle in. We're going to start to relax just a little bit. We're going to clear away some of those raindrops. That's our goal, to clear away some of the raindrops, right? Sound good? Okay. I need water. Okay. So wherever you are right now is fine. If you're sitting in a chair, cool. If you're sitting on a cushion, cool. If you're laying down, cool. We're trying not to fall asleep, though there are worse things that could happen, right? If you fall asleep, at least you're nice and relaxed. So whatever you're doing right now is fine. You don't have to change anything, right? That's actually a good takeaway from this is you don't need any special conditions to start to meditate. You have everything you need. You just need your breath and a little bit of patience and effort, right? And practice, right? So wherever you are is great, right? Just sit in a relaxed, comfortable position and close your eyes and follow along with what I'm saying. We're going to do about a 5-minute breathing meditation, okay? All right. Whenever we start meditating, the first thing we always do is check in with ourselves. Ask yourself, how are you feeling right now, in this moment? Are you tired, energetic, happy, sad, neutral, whatever it is, it does not matter. All that matters is you begin to notice. Begin to notice what your mind is doing. This is called mindfulness. We'll talk a lot about this today. So just notice how you're feeling. And having done that, you can now turn your full attention to your breath, breathing in and out of your nose very gently, very naturally. You do not need to take big, deep breaths or forcefully exhale the air. Just breathe normally in and out and allow yourself to relax. See if you're able to stay with your entire in-breath and your entire out-breath. Follow it in and out, very gently, very naturally. Maybe at some point you notice your attention has drifted and is no longer exclusively focused on your breathing. Maybe it's thinking about something that happened earlier or something that is coming up later. Whenever you notice this, just gently guide your attention back to following each breath in and out, enjoying your in-breath and out-breath, very gently, very naturally. Breathing in and out, allowing yourself to relax. Keep bringing your attention back to your breath as many times as you need to. This is meditation. You are meditating right now. You are training your mind to relax, to be calm, to be peaceful, to access its naturally peaceful state. How wonderful. So just breathe in and out for a little while longer. Enjoy sitting here. Enjoy relaxing. Enjoy breathing. Okay, when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Return to YouTube. How'd that go? Any first timers willing to share their experience? All answers are correct. So, I mean, maybe that was difficult, right? And it shouldn't really be surprising that it is, because I don't know about you, but this is probably not something that you do very often. Sit and focus on your breath, and then, when your attention drifts, bring it back to your breath. It's not something that we are familiar with, right? There's that word familiarity. So it's going to take some time, right? Just like driving took time. But eventually this is going to become more natural to it. It's going to become easier to stay focused on your breathing, and thus easier to relax yourself, right? It's all a matter of familiarity, right? That really is, like, meditation is synonymous really with familiarity. One thing that I usually like to mention, for those that are new, is a very common, I don't know if it's a complaint or kind of thought. They say, my mind seems busier when I meditate, right? Really, you're just noticing how busy your mind is all day long. Isn't that exhausting to think about? Like your mind bouncing from thing to thing, right? It's doing that all day long. Normally you're just not paying attention to it. So it's like, you never really noticed, but now you're starting to notice that. You're starting to notice what your mind is doing, right? Felt good. Like something you can do. Great. Jeffrey, first timer, less difficult than expected. Amazing. Right? I'm glad you guys had a good experience. And Joseph, I'm really glad you said that, because this is the goal, right? To make this work for you. You do not need to retreat to a cave, leave the world behind, meditate for 5 hours. You can do this for 30 seconds each morning, right? Whatever is something you can do, right? You can commit to, you can see benefits from this, right? Nice to purposely quiet my mind. Badly needed. Yeah. It's interesting. We don't really take the time to notice how busy our mind is. And it's kind of interesting to be like, wow, my mind's doing that all day long. No wonder I'm just like exhausted by the end of the day, right? Just bouncing all over the place. All right. So, if any other questions come up on general meditation, feel free to ask. I'm going to get into today's topic, which is mindfulness. But again, feel free to fire any questions you have my way. All right. So maybe you've heard of mindfulness. You probably have. It's pretty buzzwordy, right? There's mindful everything. There's mindful eating. There's mindful tennis. There's mindful walking. There's mindful everything, right? So sometimes it can be hard to discern, like, what does mindfulness mean when there's all these things, right? So really, mindfulness is being intentionally aware of your own thoughts, of what your mind is doing. We did that in the meditation, right? So being intentionally aware of your own thoughts, what your mind is doing moment to moment, but for a purpose, right? Not just like aimlessly, like, oh, what's my mind doing? The purpose is so we can be kinder to ourselves and to others, right? We can react skillfully if we start to notice what our mind is doing earlier on in the process. Mariela, it was great. I wasn't consistent with my meditations lately, but want to create a habit again. When I sing, I feel so relaxed, like during a great meditation. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yet meditation is just focusing on one thing. So you can have meditative benefits through exercise, singing, right? That's a really important thing. I'm really glad you brought that up. That's a really important thing to note, that like you can start to train in meditation outside of just sitting down quietly like this and focusing on your breath. It's good to do that, but you can do it with other things too. Really cool. Your definition of meditation is helpful. Great. I'm glad it is. Yeah, there's a lot. It can be a little like out there sometimes. So this is a good way of kind of making it work for you, right? Making it a little more down to earth. So mindfulness, we're going to pay attention to what our thoughts are doing, right? So that we can benefit from that, right? There's a purpose. We want to be kinder, more peaceful, kinder to others and ourselves. Like, there's a purpose to doing this, right? So it starts with awareness, right? That's a starting point, recognizing what our mind is doing, being present, right? We hear that a lot. We'll talk a lot about that today. But our end point is kindness, developing mindfulness to deal with issues more skillfully, to be more available to ourselves, to others, right? There's an intention behind this. It's just something I like to kind of drive home, because intention is sort of like a compass for us. Like, if we ever like, I don't know why I'm doing this anymore. Like, oh yeah, that's why. This is my intention. I'm doing this so I can deal with issues more skillfully, right? Like, gets us back on track, right? So there are a lot of benefits of mindfulness, and maybe you know a lot already. It's it's pretty widely accepted as a beneficial thing, right? But we're going to focus on 3 today, and each one of these kind of builds on the previous one, right? So the first benefit is mindfulness kind of is like an early detection system, right, for our mind, right? So things like anger, anxiety, I like to compare these to forest fires, right? So if you're in the forest, right, and there happens to be a flame spark right in front of you, this flame, and you just like step on it, right, and put the flame out, well, that's great. There's no forest fire, right? You caught it early, right? Now, if you let this flame fester, what happens, right? The forest starts to be engulfed in flames, and it becomes a lot harder to manage, right? Our anxiety, anger, they're very similar to this. This is a very good analogy for them, right? If we catch them early, they're easier to manage. Our problem is that we usually don't catch them early. We usually start to fully recognize that we're anxious when we're like panicked and the forest is on fire, and it becomes more difficult to manage. So mindfulness helps us detect these things early. Mariela, yes, exercises too. Sometimes I even start yawning during some exercise. It takes as a sign that my body and mind are relaxing. Yeah, it's cool. That's a very cool thing to notice. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So our early detection system, right? Essentially, the earlier we catch wind of what our mind is up to, the easier it is for us to manage and pivot and skillfully react to what our mind is doing, right? So like, all right, it's the holidays, right? Maybe you're going to have a dinner with the family. Maybe it's over Zoom this year, all right? And everyone's catching up, and I don't know, and Uncle Bob says, "Oh, did I ever tell you the story?" And your mind starts to be like, "No, not again. Uncle Bob always tells this story. Why does he always tell this story? It's not even a good story. Can't he tell us a different story?" And you're like losing it, right? You're like getting so frustrated, like you're ruminating about this. Uncle Bob was going to say the story again, and then you're like, you're festering more. I gotta say something. This is the year I'm gonna say something, right? And then you're like, look over your brother's like, don't say anything, and you're like, I gotta say something, and then you just like lash out, right? Oh, Uncle Bob, no one wants to hear the story, right? At that point where we like lash out is usually where we catch our mind being angry. Right. So this is an example, and maybe you haven't had this experience with old Uncle Bob, but you've had this experience with getting angry before, right? It's sort of like the forest fire. So like at first, when Uncle Bob starts the story, that's like the spark, right? But we don't catch it there. We catch it later on after we've already like done something and that we probably regret. If we could catch it earlier, well, maybe we'll be like, you know what? Uncle Bob's, he doesn't really have a lot of people he talks to, and maybe he really looks forward to telling this story every year. It only takes about 5 minutes, not that big of a deal, and it makes him really happy. It's good to be happy. I'm glad Uncle Bob's happy, right? So the idea is that if we can notice what our mind is doing, in this instance, notice like the frustration sparking, well, we might be able to react more skillfully and have a better response than just letting it fester like that forest fire. Does that make sense? Apologies if anyone here is Uncle Bob. All right, so our early detection system. That's pretty good, right? And the early detection system that is mindfulness, monitoring our mind, monitoring our thoughts, sets ourselves up to do a lot of really wonderful things, right? Well, there's an example we just did, right? So the second benefit, we do like early detection, right? And then we have the choice of where we want our mind to be. Kindness to all, even to Uncle Bob's, especially to them. Yes, the theme for today, kindness to Uncle Bob's. So good. So we have a choice of where we want our mind to be, right? That's like a promise of meditation, of mindfulness. That's what we're training in, to like have a little bit more assertion over what our mind is doing, right? Right now, it seems like your mind is kind of doing whatever it wants and you're along for the ride. Your mind's like, okay, I'm going to get angry at Uncle Bob now. And you're like, okay, I'm getting angry at Uncle Bob. Or your mind's like, okay, I'm going to be anxious now. And you're like, okay, I'm anxious. Or I'm going to be happy. Okay, I'm happy. Mindfulness gives us the opportunity to start to choose where we want our mind to be, right? Starting with, and that's why the early detection thing is so important, is if we can't notice that we're doing these things, we can't change them, right? So that's why that's like step one, really important. So if we're going to think about choosing where we want our thoughts to be, where we want our mind to be, it's interesting to think about where is our mind normally, right? Like left to its own devices, where is our mind? What does it do, right? How much of your thoughts do you think are in the past or future, like based in the past or the future, right? Like how often are you thinking about something that happened earlier? Maybe something somebody said to you, right? Something happened, something happened, or you regret. And like these are all thoughts of the past, right? Or maybe you're worrying about getting your work done so you can get home on time, right? We think about that a lot. We're anxious about an event coming up, thinking about what we're going to have for dinner. These are all thoughts of the future, right? So our mind is very frequently like left to its own devices, almost always in the past or in the future, right? And if our mind is in the past or in the future, where is it not? It is not in the present, right? So when you hear about, being present and the benefits of being present, right? This is what we're talking about. We're talking about recognizing when our mind is kind of doing some future thinking, right? When it's doing some past thinking, and then being able to choose if we want it to be there, right? So maybe anxiety is a really good one. I think it's a good example, right? So anxiety is all based in the future. All worries of anxiety, like they're based in the what ifs, right? It's all future based. It's very interesting to think about. We did a lot of classes on anxiety here. But if we were able to detect our anxiety early, right? And we're like, okay, my mind is starting to head into worries of the future, right? Do I want it to be there? Do I want it to be there, or do I want it to be in the present moment, right? We start to have a choice. We start to recognize that we're in the driver's seat of where we want our mind to be. The reason why we get really frustrated with some of these things like anxiety and dwelling in the past and things like that is that we don't feel like we have a choice. We feel powerless to do it, right? So in a way, mindfulness helps us realize that we do have the ability to dictate where our mind is at any given moment, which is very great because controlling our mind, like our own thoughts, is like the only thing we really have full control over, right? We can't control all the things that are going on out there. We can try really hard, but it doesn't always work out. So it's really important to realize that we do have the ability to dictate where our thoughts are, right? Joseph, mindfulness works very well in yoga class. Yes, absolutely. In fact, yoga is sort of like meditation through movement, right? So you're focusing on, like, you're single pointedly focused on your movements. It's the same thing. You're focused on one thing, and all the other things are starting to fade away, and you're starting to relax. It's all the same concept. Totally. So we do an early detection. We notice when our mind is kind of dwelling in the past or like going into the future, and we're like, do I want to be there, right? And then we're like, all right, let me bring it back to the present moment. Let me focus on what's going on right now, right? So the third benefit is finding little joys by being in the present moment. This is really the promise of this kind of like, be in the present moment mantra that you hear a lot, right? So when we are present, our mind is not, way off in the future or in the past. We're just kind of enjoying what we're doing, totally plugged in single pointedly to what we're doing. We start to notice some things that we wouldn't normally notice. I work with a gentleman. We do like a kind of like one-on-one classes, which I do offer if you're interested in that. And he was saying that he usually goes to this lake to kind of relax, right? And he was saying that the last time he went, he was doing some meditation there. And he said he really started to notice the smell of the water and how like cool the water smelled, right? And he started to describe to me the smell of the water, right? Which is such a cool thing, right? Like he's noticing how water smells. That's not something we notice. Like we're not normally noticing how water smells, like going around sniffing our glasses of water, right? But he was so plugged into the lake and being present that he started to notice some little joys that were going on around him, like the smell in the lake, or maybe like some birds chirping or things like that, right? So mindfulness gives us the choice to be present, and being present helps us find little joys in all of the things that we're doing, even something as simple as walking down the street, right? Now, it's the holidays, and so maybe we'll see like children playing with toys. Great example of this, right? So maybe a very small child gets a gift. Maybe it's like a wooden train or something. Oh, that's kind of old school, but we'll go with it. And the kid's playing with the wooden train, and he's just having a blast, right? And we're looking, and we're like, that's amazing. He's so excited about this wooden train. It's just a wooden train. But to the child, it's not just a wooden train, because the child is so present and plugged in with the train, single-pointedly focused on the train, that what's happening? It's a hat. I can eat the wheels. It's very fun to roll. It's fun to roll on my head and to flip upside down. There's all these little joys that the child is finding in this, to us, seemingly mundane toy, all because they're very present with it, right? They're very interested. There's a sense of wonder and fascination that comes from being present, right? We can do that too, right? We were kids once. Yeah. So mindfulness helps us be like a child at play with all the things that we're doing, right? To kind of recapture this sense of wonder with even things that we don't think are wondrous, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second, about how we train in mindfulness. When I'm in the present moment, I even notice nature being more colorful. Yeah, like amazing. And if you think about it, you've probably had an experience like this, right? Maybe you're walking down your block and you're like, oh man, like, oh, the birds are like doing such a cool song. And then there's also been times where you're walking down the exact same block and you're like thinking about what you're going to do for work and you don't notice any of that. It's there, but you just you're not paying attention to it, right? You're missing some of the little joys, right? This is very good for the holidays. Sometimes, especially this holiday is not going to, for a lot of us, it's not really a normal one, right? And so our mind might be all over the place. So reeling it in a little bit with mindfulness helps us notice some of the little joys that we are experiencing, even when our conditions aren't perfect, right? So these are three pretty cool benefits, right? And so maybe you think about these and you're like, yeah, sounds good. I'd like to get into that. So how do you do that? How do you start to practice mindfulness? How do you start to make this a part of your life, right? So one is by actually meditating, right? We were doing this earlier, right? We were focusing on our breath. And then when we noticed that our mind was not focused on our breath, but thinking about the past, something that happened earlier, or the future, something that happened later, we're like, nope, and we're bringing it back, right? That's a practice of mindfulness, right? So when you're meditating, you're actually dual practicing. You're practicing meditation, you're actually practicing mindfulness. It's great, right? 2-for-1 deal. But we're not always meditating, right? We're busy. So we don't, I don't know about you, and I don't spend all my time sitting down and meditating. And so we have to, find ways to do this out in the wild, right? In our normal daily life. So 2 things that I would suggest for that is set an alarm on your phone or your watch or something. And this is going to be your mindfulness alarm. When this bad boy goes off, you stop what you're doing and you just check in with yourself. Just like we did in the meditation. How am I feeling right now? What's my mind feeling like? Is it like all over the place? Is it kind of focused? We're just checking in, right? And this is going to feel forced at first because we don't normally check in with ourselves. But this is a very important thing to start to do, right? Because if we can't check in with ourselves, we can't do this early detection system, right? And that's really our first step. So we have to kind of force check in with ourselves. And over time, by becoming familiar with doing this, you're going to find yourself checking in without the alarm. Right? Noticing what your mind is doing without the alarm, right? Very well, but I think the nature is so colorful all the time. It's me who can't notice it when I'm not in the present moment. Exactly. The beauty of the world outside isn't changing, right? It's the mind that you're bringing to that world, right? That's a very insightful thing, and that is it's like a pillar of meditation, right? The power of your mind to influence your experience, right? Very good. So then the third thing I would say to start to practice mindfulness, this is my favorite, it's most fun, I think, is like a little game. We're going to pick a routine activity to totally plug into. The example I always use is brushing your teeth, right? Because I don't know anybody who brushes their teeth and thinks about brushing their teeth. Everybody who brushes their teeth is thinking about something totally different than brushing their teeth. What am I going to do at work? Or, oh, I should have went to bed earlier. Well, there's like a million things. But we're not thinking about brushing our teeth, right? So what if we instead, when we brushed our teeth, we only thought about that, right? We really we're meditating on brushing our teeth. We're noticing how the bristles feel on our teeth, the sound that they make, right? Just try to plug in to brushing your teeth. And when your mind drifts, be like, nope, brushing my teeth, focusing on brushing my teeth. Same concept as breathing meditation. Might start to notice some little joys about brushing our teeth, right? So we can do this with all of our activities, right? We'll start small, start with one and see if it works for you, then maybe add another one in. And we can start to get to the point where we're really truly enjoying each activity that we're doing, even ones that we never really thought were that enjoyable, like brushing your teeth. I don't know, maybe you love brushing your teeth. It's not something that's high on my list of enjoyment, but it does serve a good purpose. How's this sound? Good? We're going to do a quick meditation now on mindfulness. I'll lead it. But anybody have any questions on this before we do that? What can I recommend that helps me get back to heart space, present moment, like watching animals, puppies, little cats, instantly makes me smile. So the first thing I would suggest for getting back to being present is noticing when you're not being present, right? That early detection, recognizing when your mind is kind of dwelling in the future or the past, it's the first step. It has to be, right? Because what's that old? It's like a saying or something like if you can't solve a problem if you don't know that you're having one or something like that. Like if we can't notice that we're not being present, then we can't do anything about it. So this idea of checking in with yourself is really the first step to being to having the kind of present moment feeling come naturally to you, right? So I would suggest doing this alarm on your phone. It works really well. That'd be my recommendation. All right, let's do our meditation. Sound good? Okay, so this is going to be like kind of similar to last time with a little bit more like visualization kind of. We're gonna add in that investigation aspect, right? We're gonna clear away the raindrops on the lake, and then we're gonna look at the reflection in the lake. We're gonna investigate something, right? Okay, so sit comfortably, relaxed, wherever you are is perfect, and you can go ahead and close your eyes and just follow along with what I'm saying. Let's once again check in with ourselves. How are you feeling now? Different? The same as before? What is your mind doing? Now we know why we're doing this. We are practicing mindfulness. So just check in. Just notice how your mind feels in this moment. And we can once again turn our full attention to our breathing in and out through our nose, very gently, very naturally. Breathing in and out. Allow yourself to relax. Allow yourself to enjoy breathing, to enjoy being here. Breathing in and out, following each breath. And if your mind drifts away from your breathing, just gently guide it back. Guide your attention back to following each in-breath, each out-breath, very gently, very naturally. As you start to plug into your breathing single-pointedly, you may notice some things about your breath that you hadn't noticed before. some sensations of breathing itself. Maybe you are noticing how the air feels cool on the tip of your nose when you breathe in, and how it feels a bit warmer as you breathe out. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that fascinating? Maybe you notice how your body moves with each breath. Your shoulders rising and falling, totally in sync with your breathing. Isn't that fascinating? You're beginning to notice some little joys in breathing itself, merely by being present with your breath. Merely by breathing in and out, very gently, very naturally. So after breathing in this way for a little while, maybe we find ourselves feeling a bit more relaxed, a bit more calm, even just slightly. We can use this calm mind to investigate something, to learn, to think critically. Today we're going to do a investigation, or contemplation it's officially called, on the benefits of staying present. We're going to do a little bit of a visualization, so just follow along with what I'm saying. I'd like you to bring to mind the most beautiful, vast, blue sky you could possibly imagine. Boundless. Gorgeous blue sky. Just imagine it. You can imagine that our mind right now is this boundless, gorgeous blue sky. Isn't that wonderful to think about? In our sky-like mind, there will inevitably be some clouds, right? These clouds, these thought clouds, if you will, they are always of the past or the future. So maybe we have a thought cloud of the past, something somebody said pops into our mind. Normally what we do is we stick our head in this thought cloud and focus entirely on it. We lose track of the boundless blue sky. But we can continue to focus on the blue sky even when there are these thought clouds of the past. We can let these thought clouds of the past move through our mind. We can watch them fade away and continue enjoying our boundless blue sky-like mind. Maybe we have some thought clouds of the future, something coming up later, a worry. Instead of sticking our head in those clouds, we can let them pass through. We can watch them fade away. We can choose to focus on the blue sky even when there are clouds. The blue sky is always there. So with our thought clouds of the past gone and our thought clouds of the future gone, we are left with the present moment. Right now. This moment, this moment, this moment, this moment. We can enjoy sitting here in the present moment, feeling our body in the chair, noticing our breathing in and out. We can enjoy just sitting here. We can find the little joys in just existing in this moment. So just spend a couple moments enjoying being in the present, having your mind being firmly in the present moment. Okay, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes. How was that? Hopefully it was enjoyable, relaxing, something like that. So that's like that's more of what I would consider a full meditation, right? So we started by clearing away the raindrops, right? We started by doing the breathing meditation to relax. And then we're doing an exercise, a thought exercise to kind of affirm some of the things that we were talking about earlier, right? So we were kind of using this visualization of the sky to notice, really to notice exactly what Mariola was talking about, right? That the world around us is always very beautiful. We just kind of start to stick our head in the clouds, right? So our mind is always like this beautiful, boundless sky. We just, whenever there's a cloud, we just forget about it and we stick our head in it, right? But we don't have to do that. We have a choice. And mindfulness gives us the power to choose where we want our mind to be by recognizing when our mind is in the past or the future and then asking ourselves, do we want it to be there? Maybe we do. Maybe we want to think, about the past or the future. That's great. But we don't have to be at the mercy of our thoughts. We can start to take ownership over our own thoughts, right? Simply by noticing that they're happening and then making that choice and thinking about some of the benefits that we've talked about, right? That'll motivate us to want to practice these things, right? If you like firmly know the benefits of something, the effort to want to do them becomes a lot easier, right? So that's why we go over some of these benefits and we think about them. Any questions, comments on that? This little sky meditation? No worries if not. You've all done quite well. I've kept you long enough. So I do hope that you found this to be helpful or relaxing or thought-provoking or one of those things or any of those things, because that's what this is all about, right? Meditation is kind of all about trying new things and thinking about new ways of thinking, right? So if that kind of feeling came to you while we were doing any of these things, that's great, right? I think we'll fall asleep after that. Very relaxed. Mariola, thank you for joining us. I know it's super late by you. It was great having you here. Thank you. It's very helpful. Denise, thank you. Thank you, guys. So and seriously, thank you for being here because I couldn't do this without you guys, right? So it's a nice little symbiotic relationship. Is that right? I don't know. Not big. I'm not a scientist. If you did find this helpful, come back next week. We're going to do a new topic. We do a new topic each week. Sometimes we like backtrack over things that we've done before, but there's a lot to go over. So we usually try to do something new. Maybe bring a friend. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want. You'll get notifications when I'm going live in case you forget. We're all very busy, so that's quite helpful. And then if you're like, I'm all in on this, I do private instruction. I do one-on-one meditation classes over Zoom, and we can focus really dive into something that's particular to you. Like, these are very general things we're talking about, but we can be more specific in like a one-on-one session. Linda, thank you for being here. Joseph, have a great holiday. Thank you for always being here. It's always wonderful having you here. Ken, why is it important to breathe through your nose? Breathing through your nose is just like traditionally how meditation is taught. Though, in my opinion, if you don't normally breathe through your nose, I would just breathe how you normally breathe. Like if you breathe through your mouth, or if you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, it doesn't really matter. And one of the goals here is to not, you don't want to start to have like, you're only thinking, oh, am I breathing right? Am I breathing right? Right. We just want to like breathe, right? So whatever's normal breathing to you is what I would recommend doing. Most people, I think, do in through the nose, out through the nose through meditation. So that's why I teach it that way. But if that's not your thing, then just breathe normally. It doesn't matter, right? As long as you're kind of focusing on it, that's all that matters. Emma, thank you. And I think I covered everything. Oh, let me put my email in the chat in case you guys have any questions, or you wanted to set up like a one-on-one meditation or something like that. Hold on, I got to concentrate. Make sure I write it correctly. It's keith@meditationbreaks.com. So if you wanted to do any private instruction or maybe something with work, just email me and we'll figure something out. Sound good? Thank you guys for being here. I do hope you all have a wonderful holiday, and be well. All right. And we'll catch up next week. All right.